that coming over the hill? Is it a podcast? Is it a podcast? Hello and welcome to episode 10 of the Triple Takeover Toycast, a podcast about Transformers and other vintage toy lines that's usually fortnightly, but for this special episode, we've actually gone weekly, just like the old Transformers comics that you remember. Why? Well, this is actually part 2 of our discussion about toy packaging, so if you are new to our podcast, hold your horses, put a cuppa on, and go and listen to episode 9 first. Don't worry, we aren't going anywhere. And for the rest of you, welcome back. We've got some good stuff for you today. As usual, I am joined by writer, photographer, and JRX worshipper, TFsquareone, also known as M.A.S.K. Say hi, M.A.S.K.
Hey, 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 hey.
Writer, photographer, YouTuber, and soon to have his own rap album, it's Sixo. Say hi, Sixo.
I feel like I should rap hello now.
Yeah,
please don't.
Go on.
I'm not going to, don't worry.
Save that for the Patreon content.
Mm.
And I'm Toybox Soapbox, or as my chiropractor calls me, Liam. This episode continues our discussion about all things toy packaging, and I literally mean all things. So without further ado, let's set time back on its correct course and rejoin our past selves. Diddly-doo, 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 diddly-doo. That's a Wayne's World reference, Matt.
We now return to the Transformers.
I just got to mention something now, and this is unrelated to anything that we're talking about, but I want to say something because I just thought of it, because I said that was interesting, and it reminded me that I'm pretty sure there was someone online that suggested that I say it's interesting quite a lot. And I think the suggestion was that there could be some sort of drinking game or something. I can't remember what the suggestion was.
Always up for that.
But well, yeah, absolutely. But and now I'm just suddenly became conscious of it, and I noticed it there that I just said that's interesting. And I just thought...
It can't be a drinking game or we'd never get to the end of an episode.
Well, that's true. I don't think
we'd never be able to speak. We'd just be funneling stuff down a gob.
Oh, right. Yeah, no, they'd never get to the end of an episode.
Yeah, true. I can't remember if it was a drinking game or what it was, what the suggestion was.
No, they just said we'd play a ding sound every time you say it.
Oh, maybe it was that. I don't know. You'd be doing more dinging than Maz did when he got that juice to box, that juice to wheeljack box, honestly.
Amazing. Hey, that wasn't even on me. You're welcome, listeners. You're welcome.
And there's the swearing. There we go. Hey ho. But yeah, no, I'm sure we've all got our moments of collecting where we got very excited about some things. Maybe just not quite that excited. But,
not Maz level.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, not screaming into your pillow because you're so excited type level, but still.
Do you know, thinking back to that moment still makes me happy. It's
That's
just,
good,
I don't think I've ever had a bigger win in this hobby in terms of finding something. That remains my best ever find, and it still makes me so happy just to think back on it.
It's no small thing either. I mean, that is incredible to think that, that this thing had never been seen. It's not publicized on the internet. It's not documented. Because I think we do take this stuff
documented on TF1.com, mate.
Well, now it is. But
save those blogs for the end.
Right. I suppose my point is that we take it for granted a bit now, don't we? Because everything is on TF Wiki, in regards to Transformers. Everything is on TF Wiki. Everything is documented. That most things, there are things obviously that we don't know, and there are still discoveries coming to light, of course. But now if you want to know something, what's this guy's name in Japan? What's this character's what's their version number or whatever it is? How many variants were there? What other colors was it done in? You just go straight on the wiki. And I think anybody, I was thinking about this earlier because someone said to me, on a random post, I think they asked me a question, I replied, they were like, your knowledge is really good. I'm like, yeah, but I still check the wiki like all the time, just because there's no one that can retain all of this information in their brain. And even then, the number of times in, posting about spy changes, RID spy changes and stuff recently in car robots, the number of times I've had to go back and fact check what I'm looking for or whatever, or actually which version was that was this particular color or whatever, because there's just too many to kind of remember. And I think we do take it for granted now. So the idea of stuff just cropping up like that and you seeing it and being like, I know what that is, and no one's ever seen it, it's mind-blowing, actually.
And I think packaging actually is perfect for that sort of desire and interest, because it's normally the toy stays the same most of the time, but it's the packaging that has little clues that are fascinating. Like the Yugoslavian G1 Optimus Prime it's a major case of wow, what even is that? It's a G1 Optimus Prime box, but in the bottom corner, instead of a Hasbro logo or instead of a Takara logo or an MB logo, it's an orange M for Marchanka, which is a Yugoslavian company back in the day, and that was like a supremely massive find, like another G1 box variety that no one has seen before, and it's only the Optimus Prime that has that logo. So it was I love G1 packaging for that reason, because and also Diaclone packaging. For example, the toys that came out in Finland, like the Blacktrax, the writing on the box is English language. It's one of the only places where you see that style of old Microman and Diaclone packaging, and it doesn't have Japanese or Italian text. It says Diaclone or Microman, Gun Robot instead of Gun Robo or something like that. Just these tiny changes, hugely familiar packaging with a tiny change that makes it a little bit novel. And I'm all about that sort of thing. I love it.
That's good. With that story, knowing you as well as I do, I'm genuinely happy for you with that story, because I know how you would have felt, and that's amazing.
But that one was not even a subtly different package. That was wildly exclusive artwork in a totally different style that's never been used anywhere else before. So seeing it was a major privilege. And then knowing that it was going to be mine, especially the way these auctions go nowadays, where I miss out and I miss out and I miss out, and the price range has just gotten to a point where I wouldn't even consider paying it. You'd never think that when you get to your 40s and you're established in a job that you like, that in your mind pays well, and you have a partner who also has a good job, and you own your home, and you think, I still can't afford to buy that toy. Like, I still can't afford to be involved in the hobby and the level that I want. I like literally the thing I love the most, I've been priced out of, is really hard to swallow. But when you think that that's how expensive that Juiced Diaclone Toyland can be now, the fact that I have that and I got it when I did is an extreme privilege. Because if it were to pop up tomorrow, you need to take a bank loan, and that's mad.
Did you get a piece of fruitcake?
I didn't, as it goes.
Denied.
After those amazing stories from Maz, either of you got any others?
Yeah, I guess the one I referenced this actually in a previous episode when we were talking about collecting completionism, and I was saying that I'd had one example that had sort of helped me to, if you like, pull the pin out of feeling that I needed to have a complete masterpiece collection, and that was the Rodimus stand that came with the MP9 Rodimus, the 2010 release. And of course, there was loads of different things that you could get surrounding that release, one of which was a stand that had previously come out with MP4 Last Stand, I think it was the original one. I forget which was the first one, but it basically was this little display stand with an audio box inside. The stand is what it is, but the point is it came in a little cardboard box, very small, little flat, nondescript cardboard box. And I'd posted some pictures of mine and video of this stand online, and a chap got in touch with me and said, would you be willing to sell your stand? And initially I was like, well, then my collection wouldn't be complete and whatever. But then he made an offer that, I obviously won't say what it was, but it was enough that I was like, there was no way I was going to question selling that thing. I would have been insane to pass it up. But it turned out that actually he already owned one of these stands. So it wasn't even the stand that he was after, and it wasn't the box either. What it was that inside the box, there's one sheet of cardboard that lays on top of, so like you open the flaps of the box and it's the thing that sits on top of the flaps, and then the main flap folds down on top of it. So it's literally just one rectangular piece of completely blank cardboard. You could see it out of context and you would just think it was a bit of rubbish, whatever that you put in recycling. And this guy was willing to pay, I would say, a slightly astronomical sum for it. And I suppose, initially when he was like, I want to pay you this for the stand, I was like, wow, okay, that's kind of unexpected, but okay, of course. And then when I found out it was just specifically for this one bit of cardboard, I was like, wow, that's a level of completionism that I'm not sure that I can, compete against, really. And that was definitely for me, as a, just referencing back to that episode, that was definitely for me the point where I was like, I'm out. Do you know what I mean? I don't need this level of completionism in my life, and that stand going was a good thing, I think, in that regard. But yeah, that's for me. Whenever I think about people chasing packaging, that's been the most insane for sure.
Yeah, I can understand that because you get that in the vintage world as well.
Sure.
Like in Dieclone Insecticons, they come with like this foam inner, just this foam sheet. It's almost like a sponge that they kind of wrap around the toy and then put it in the box. It doesn't come in styro, the single packed ones. And most of the time that just gets thrown out. So if there's one that's got it, or if someone is selling the foam, or I'll tell you what about the little styro bar that goes over a Jetfire in a G1 box?
I have it.
So that's a thing that sells by itself for quite a lot of money as well.
And it's easy to cast shade on that stuff, and it's easy to be. I mean, same with the Rodimus thing. It's easy to kind of think, oh, that's a bit silly or whatever. But actually, people do collect like this, and if it brings joy and that's what people feel is needed for their collection to be complete. Hey man, I'm who am I to judge?
It's all part of the package, isn't it? It's all. I mean, not just the packaging, but the whole package of the toy. Yeah. And so, if your desire is to get the fully boxed version of that toy, you want all those little bits as well. And otherwise, there's possibly a little nagging doubt, isn't there?
And I think these are people that have kept, in certainly a lot of cases anyway, they've kept their collections very niche, or very specific to what it is that they're looking for. So someone like the Jetfire thing, if you're going to that level of completionism, you're not going to be buying absolutely every toy under the sun. If you're hunting that kind of specific thing, probably not anyway. So I think it's you've got to look at that in the context of people that are not buying whole swathes of Kingdom and whatever as well, or whatever the latest releases are. These are people that are hunting for very specific items for a set collection.
And it makes perfect sense for those who want to establish that feeling of a totally unused, pristine product. These little bits really matter. And like you were saying, they look like totally innocuous pieces of cardboard. The red tracks I was talking about, the Milton Bradley releases, they were basically repackaged Diaclones into Transformers boxes. And Hasbro Transformers boxes are a bit more cavernous than the Diaclone boxes. So these bits of styro with like a Ratchet or a Mirage or a Jazz would go into a Transformers box, but they'd be floating around in the middle. So they would include these like cardboard supports that the styro slides into, and then the cardboard support goes into the typical size vintage G1 car box. And then at the end of it, there's like another C-shaped cardboard thing. And these things on their own sell for appreciable amounts of money if they will help someone complete the packaging for a certain toy. And the more prestigious the toy is, the more valuable the little tiny innocuous bits of packaging are as well. So you want a story. I mean, that Trax, when Trax came out in Japan in G1, it was still in styro. Like Takara released these toys in styro, but obviously the space for the Diaclone driver was removed because Transformers didn't have Diaclone drivers. So they did new styro and just filled in that little styro space for the driver. And when I bought a Dieclone Blacktrax from Finland, it was missing its styro. And the only places you can get a Trax styro with the little space for the Dieclone driver is a Japanese Dieclone Trax or the Milton Bradley Red Trax. There's, or the Juistra version of Red Trax, which is the rarest of them all. So when I found someone who had Red Trax, I said to him, look, are you willing to swap your Red Trax insert with its little Dieclone driver space for my Japanese Trax insert? Now, the Japanese Trax insert is way more common than that. And it wasn't enough for him to just get my Japanese version. I also had to put a couple of €100 on top just to get his styro. So I paid that and a Japanese Trax insert for the styro to complete my Dieclone Blacktrax.
Wow.
Well, Maz, you've told some stories, but that one is possibly the most Maz story I've ever heard.
It's quite a Maz story, yeah.
Literally, you're the only person I could think of doing that, and it would make total sense.
Yeah. Fair play, man. Fair play.
I mean, it was insane at the time, but I mean, sadly, I actually did sell that whole Dieclone Blacktrax. But when I did sell it, it had box, styro, toy, paperwork, everything. And that package together totally justified everything that I had done before to create that package. And it was authentic.
Yeah. I was just going to say, how good did you feel when you put that all together for the first time?
That was brilliant. And for me, authenticity of all the parts that make up a particular toy matter. I don't like it when sellers Frankenstein toys and packaging and accessories together just to sell it as quote unquote complete, when the packaging doesn't match the release or the insert is not the same as what it should be. I think somewhere down the line, maybe when people like us have left the hobby and a lot of people in the hobby today have moved on, and maybe the next generation want to sort of establish a chronology for what was released, the more of this sort of Frankensteining that takes place, you just dilute the history of the hobby. You dilute facts and you can't trace where things came from and the facts behind it. And that's been a huge part of the vintage hobby, deciphering the history of the brand.
I think, again, that's hard to put into context today, isn't it? For people that are maybe, I'm assuming anyway, kind of coming up in the hobby now, because, the current toys, all right, there are variants, but not to the same degree.
No.
And I mean, nowhere near. And, you don't get the same weird history of different companies putting out the same toys in different parts of the world, with little variants going on here, but also everything is documented. Everything's in hand,
right,
everything's immediately on social media. And so, that sort of proliferation of photos and everything, it just makes it all.
And these companies keep the records of everything, don't they, now as well? All the packaging and stuff, and they release them in books or things like that. But even if they don't, you could go to them and possibly get it if you were so inclined to track it down. Whereas with this old stuff, a lot of it was just binned, wasn't it, like years later, and cleared out and lost to time.
Well, precisely. And that's what makes it rare, but it's also what makes it, hard to get hold of. But the fact that actually so much of it is not known, and I'm always fascinated by stuff like Bumper or Bumble Jumper, things like that even now, there's still kind of a question mark about how it was packaged and it's never sort of been seen as such, on some cards and things like that. Like it's known that it was on Bumblebee cards, but not on Cliff Jumper cards? Or...
No, there was just like a rumor that it came out on Bumblebee cards, but it's only ever been found on Cliff Jumper cards.
Right, I got it the wrong way around. But that's the thing. But like maybe it was never on Bumblebee cards, but
I don't think it was.
But it would still be incredible if something like that turned up, right? I'm just using that as one example. But I mean, you would know more about that kind of arena than me. But I still find that kind of stuff bizarrely fascinating. But
It is fascinating, man. It's
you don't get that same thing today, though. That's the thing.
It's peak vintage nerdery. I think it's wonderful, and when something new pops up, it's amazing. But like, I did have a phase where I thought, like how speculators get into hobbies and think, well, I'm going to hold on to this and keep it sealed because one day it's going to be worth something because it was in the past. I remember when I bought my Binaltech smokescreen, the BT07 version, I bought both of them, didn't I? The number 1 and the number 2. And my number 2 one was inserted into the box backwards. And I was like, oh my God, proper packaging variant. I went online and thought, hey guys, look at this. I've bought a Binaltech and it's gone in backwards. This is amazing, right? It's amazing. Anyone cares? Nobody cares? I'll be quiet. Nobody cares. Okay. And I was just like, I just took it out of the box and put it in the right way around because nobody cared. So, what was my point?
Packaging variants versus
packaging variants. It's a good point. And I think it follows on nicely. It is interesting. I think nowadays, though, maybe it would have been the same back in the day, though, I guess, at the time that, things like, oh, here's an Optimus Prime with red feet. Probably nobody would have given her monkeys back in the 80s. It wouldn't have been such a thing, would it? It's only in later years that this stuff becomes sort of legendary.
That red tracks, for example, like Dutch collectors who saw those red tracks didn't want them because they wanted a blue tracks like in the cartoon. So it was like not a very popular toy.
Yeah. Well, it's what we said earlier, isn't it? That it's always the unpopular stuff at the time, or very often, that becomes worthwhile, kind of sought after, because no bugger wanted it when it was released, and so, nobody kept it or anything. Whereas actually, it's the really popular stuff, and I guess that kind of again comes back to my point earlier, about people collecting. I know I said like Studio Series Hot Rod earlier, but how many people are going to have sealed copies of that toy? So it's never really going to, I don't think, I could be wrong, but I don't think it's ever going to be worth, it's never going to net you a decent pension fund or anything like that, but who's to say, this stuff, it's impossible to tell in some cases, isn't it? What
especially if it's not like an end of line, end of wave release that most people aren't interested in. Like how Alternators Rumble is kind of a bit of a funny one because it's so late in the line that just one of those kind of things.
Yeah. It's wild when I think about that toy, and I remember seeing it in the Entertainer for quite cheap and stuff like that. And not giving it a moment's thought. And like now, it's like I would kill to go back and just take them all off the shelf.
Yeah. Well, so many examples like that. I can't tell you the number of people I've spoken to in the last year or more about things like Shining Magnus and old what's he called, movie preview Magnus. I was going to call him Delta Magnus there for a minute, but even things like the Bape G1 Optimuses, Optimi, and the Jafcon Prime as well. All of these really insanely cool reissues that all have exceptionally cool packaging as well, by the way, and all of those Optimus variants have very unique, not unique, I was going to say very uniform packaging as well that I really appreciate. I think actually you could have a really nice collection of boxed toys, just Optimuses and Magnuses, and I think that would be really stunning to see. But I digress. But yeah, all of those I've seen people kind of going, oh man, I should have got one of these, Shining Magnus when it was cheap as chips, and now look at it, it's worth X number of whatever, and it's it's kind of got a bit insane, hasn't it?
Yep.
But all stuff that people didn't want at the time.
Destroyers from deep space.
So we've spoken a lot about packaging, and it's all designed to sell toys and all things like that. But there are other types of packaging, aren't there, where toys come in. Sometimes it's boxes where it's for display, like the Pit of Judgment, or where they come in little baggies, or exclusives and things like that. There are lots of different types of packaging, aren't there?
Yeah, baggies is a funny one because I've bought a number of things recently that just came packaged in baggies, and it's not particularly good for display. Like if you want to keep it totally pristine or sealed, and it's kind of like these McDonald's changeables that I bought recently. They came in baggies, and I wanted perfect ones, so I got them sealed. But then I knew that I'd be slicing open the baggies to take them out, and then they'd never be in that kind of display position again. So I bought a second set of each to have a sealed set. And now that I've actually got the open ones in my display, and they're out there, and I've got the baggies in storage, I just think I'm not going to put them back in the baggies. I'm not going to enjoy them in the baggies. Maybe I should just sell my extra sealed set. And so I don't really think they look particularly good in their packaging. And same with like the Mail Away Weetabix drag strip or Fireflight from 1986 or whenever it was. I have no, actually they were the classic era, weren't they? Like 89,
they were
90.
later. Yeah, they were later.
So I bought a drag strip fully with the intention of opening it because it was so well priced. And I did think like, well, that means that this is no longer going to be perfectly maintained. And by the time I'd finished that thought, I'd already sliced open the packaging and taken drag strip out. So
it is a completely different mentality though with those, isn't it? Because they are single use. As soon as you've opened them,
right,
it's done. You cannot put them back in this.
No.
Well, you can, but it's not. You can't close the box.
I opened one today. I got through a Jusco Indie Heat, which is the translucent blue Car Robots Indie Heat. It's the one that was given away free with Rail Racer, I think, or JRX. You had to buy a JRX and you got it for free. So it just came in a little plastic bag. And it's not an overly valuable toy or anything like that, but yeah, same thing. It's just literally a clear baggie, not even like some of the other Jusco ones, which are blind bagged, which is a whole other thing. But this is just a little clear plastic bag, no marking on it. But yeah, if you want to get to the toy, you've got to open it. And now I'm just left with, I'm looking at it now, this little clear plastic bag. What do I do with that now then? Do you know what I mean? I guess I hang on to it because it's the toy's packaging, and it's
before it crumbles to dust.
Well, yeah. What, the toy?
No, the plastic packaging.
Oh, okay. I thought you were talking. I thought you were knocking clear plastic toys there for a minute. I was going to say that's.
I'll do that as well. I just assumed I didn't want to upset you.
That's the common one, isn't it? You post a picture of a clear plastic toy, and inevitably someone says, "Oh, that'll be dust in 5 minutes," or something like that. So,
be careful of the arms.
Yeah.
Do you remember that occasion where I showed like a well-known Transformers person my clear plastic? I think it was like Diaclone powered suit, and he said, "When your daughter's 10 years old, that will have crumbled to dust." Well, she's 9 and it's still fine. I guess there's a catastrophic event that's going to happen in the next 12 months, and that thing's going to...
Can this please happen live on the pod?
Yeah.
I sold it. I was so worried about this crumbling that I just sold it. So.
It's just the weird way people's brain works, isn't it? Of like, oh, I've got something really exciting. Let me point out the approximate worst thing that could happen to that item that you
obviously have no clue about and have not researched before you've gone and bought this thing. Yeah,
that's always the thing. Like, you don't know about it. It's when someone always goes GPS, and you're like, I know. I bought
Yes.
it.
I know.
I can see
I mean, look, we're getting into another topic, but it is funny. But I got that Black Zarek, G1 Black Zarek, and people posting on it, and I don't mind at all. It's just funny to me. People posting, "Be careful, it has GPS," and I'm like, really? You don't like I wouldn't have known that.
Never heard of it.
What? Do you know what I mean? GPS? It's just really funny to me.
You sound like Yoda there. I like that.
Well, it's my mock surprise voice. There you go. I'm putting it on especially for that. But it's nice that people are taking the time, I guess, to kind of point it out and whatever. But it is still kind of funny. But yeah, anyway, talking about Just Go rather than Clear Toys, and yeah, the blind bags is a whole thing as well, because of course I had a bit of fun doing some blind boxed. Actually, they weren't even bagged, but blind boxed super spy changes just at the weekend as well. That was a lot of fun. But that actually, I find appealing and not appealing in terms of packaging. You've both got Micromaster 6 teams and things as well, which are blind boxed. And
I do now.
Yeah, you do now. And that is, I think, fun in its way, but also a total pain in the what's-it for collectors, because
it really is. Yeah,
you just don't know what you're getting.
And at the time, they were released in these like case boxes, and they say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on the front, but you don't know if you're getting a chase color or the normal color. Like, how many would you have had to buy? My first experience of this was the SCF super collectible figure PVCs. Remember those G1 PVCs, the first thing to ever say Generation 1 on the box?
I had some.
Yeah, I mean, I remember I would buy a whole act just to get the chase figure. At one point, I just thought, I'm not going to be buying the chase figures online. I'm just going to try and get it, and then later assemble it myself from the parts that were squeezed into different boxes. And I think the only time I've enjoyed that sort of thing is when it's just been really cheap. Like,
if it's not cheap, it's no fun, for sure.
I was going to Asda on my way home from work a number of years ago, and there were these like little mini-cons that came with fizzy sweets. Do you remember those?
Yeah.
And there was like some of them would be exclusive colors to the UK. And that was really fun. And, man, I ate a lot of those sweets, which was not as fun as it sounded.
They were really coveted by Americans for a while, weren't they? I remember people.
Yeah, I did sell a few sets to the US. And I even went so far as getting the display box as well from one Asda. And that was fun because it was so affordable. And I would just pop in there after work and get like a box of 6 and then like open them one by one at home. Be like, oh, cool, I finally got that one I was looking for. But when you're talking about £20 to £30 per item, and you open a box and like, I've just got 3 duplicates of the same thing. It's just not fun at all.
I mean, the 6 combiners is probably a great example of that, because trying to get, again, you're right. It's the chase versions, because you can tell, there is a tiny little thing on the front of the boxes that says 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, but not knowing if it's a chase version or not. So in theory, you could be buying them for some time, just trying to collect, a fully white 6-wing or a black 6 turbo or whatever it is. And I think the only way to collect them now, I know you've tried to kind of get them piecemeal, but I just ended up buying complete sets, for people that had already unbagged them and put them together. Just because, man, who's got the
You pay a premium for it though, don't you?
Yeah, to some extent, I guess. But I don't know, though, because I kind of know, seeing the prices of the individuals, I feel like it stacks up pretty quickly.
That's a good point, actually.
And individual shipping and customs, if that's a thing or whatever, I think it stacks up pretty quick. I actually think, thinking about all my 6 combiners, there isn't any of them that I wasn't like happy with the kind of full price for, that I felt.
And of course, your Red 6 train was a gift.
That's true. So that was the best of all. So, and it is actually probably my favorite as well. So I'm not just saying
it's
that.
Lovely. It's so lovely.
It's so gorgeous. But yeah, the super spy changes now. I'm in a world where it's a case of 12. They come in a little box of 12, and of course there are 6 super spy changes, and then it's confirmed that in each box there's 2 clear versions, not chase but just clear versions. And so of course then you get 4 left over. So that's weird in itself. 4 duplicates. So you're like, okay, so I've got to move these on now. And they're going to a very good friend of mine. But there you go. That's what I've got for you. They can go in with your Monster Munch. And
let's do it.
Yeah, there we go. and your alternators.
This box is getting better by the minute.
It's just racking up things, inserts, spy changes. But now to get the other 4 of those clear plastic ones, I'm not looking forward to it actually.
No.
Just because,
and of course, these sealed boxes are meant for retailers, aren't they? They're meant to be point of sale items where people just buy one out of the display box when they go to pay for something else. And
I do like the idea of it though. I like the idea of it more than the practicality, I guess. But I mean, like
Absolutely.
your pre-Transformers mini spies, the box that would have come with those.
Yeah,
that's fascinating to me.
Vintage store display Takara boxes are just such a wonderful area of this hobby. So unfortunately rare and hard to find, but when you do find them, like the Headmaster Warriors, artwork for the vintage G1 Headmaster Warriors. How amazing was that?
I loved seeing that, particularly as I have the little boxes for all of them, and just seeing what it would have looked like in the display. It's fascinating to me to kind of think about that, just absolutely wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, really, really, really nice. But yeah, definitely a strange one. The old bags and blind boxes and all of that malarkey. It's just a different way, isn't it? Really,
it is fascinating as well when third parties getting on the apps as well, isn't it? Like with the open and play Galvatron, where it came in a carrier bag, like you just bought it. It's like you just bought it from Lidl or something, with a bottle of Buckfast.
I've never actually seen it. I mean, I've seen the toy, but not the bag. Was it just in a bag?
Yeah, it was just a plastic bag with like a drawing of Galvatron's face on it, and then just this like font, like they discovered Word in 1995 that just said Big Cannon on it. That's all it was. Literally, all
incredible.
It is. Yeah.
Because I think I received a sample of that toy to review, and I'm pretty sure I can't remember. Did it just come bubble wrapped then in a box, and that's all I had, or did it come in like a clamshell insert? Is there a clamshell insert inside the carrier bag?
No, not from memory. From memory, it was just in a bag.
I've just found a picture of it. It's like a clear plastic bag with some purple writing on it that says Big Cannon.
Look at that font. It just looks. It's someone's just discovered Word for the first time.
It's a bit Comic Sans. It's a bit It's
like an email from someone at work saying Happy Birthday.
It really is. It really is.
Does it have any clip art on it?
I can't see the full thing because they've got
it did come with a Mr. Paperclip accessory.
Yeah, it really does look cheap and naff, to be honest. Not to knock them or whatever, but it's even got one of those little white plastic handles. It leaves the little space for you to put your fingers through.
Amazing.
I couldn't believe it. I thought people were joking until I got it, and I was like, "Huh, well, that's new."
So then I guess the onus is on retailers to package it well and to kind of make sure that it's protected and everything. So, but
and then bear the brunt of it when they all get returned for damage.
Right, exactly. Because I mean, it's nuts, really. Actually, I was going to say that's kind of a separate but also interesting point, isn't it? Which is shipping all of this stuff, packaging and how it's protected and whatever, whether it's from retailers or whether it's aftermarket stuff. Because I have noticed more and more. I think Kapow were one of the first to do it, maybe, where they actually say that the standard of box is not mint and that you pay a slight premium to get a mint box. And I think that's just on the assumption that that most people will be happy to not have a mint box when it's delivered, and that actually the people that want to care, you pay a couple of extra quid or whatever it is.
I remember like TF Source were the first to do that, I think, when the Transformers.
Were TF Source the first one to do
I remember them offering like a C9 or less
C9
perfect box, collector's grade box.
Which I guess makes sense. I guess if they, by the very nature, these boxes are going to get roughed around and whatever. So maybe it makes sense that they put a few aside and say, okay, these are the real mint ones. Actually, I was just thinking the other day of Unicron as well, and how weird it is that Unicron, the new HasLab Unicron, is such an expensive toy. I mean, insanely expensive toy. But actually, the shipping box. The toy box that comes in is the shipping box.
Yeah, that's right.
So your address and everything is just slapped on the side of the toy box, very much like a delivery from Amazon in that way.
Yeah.
When they do that.
I wonder if that's going to be cool 20 years down the line for people who buy these, because I know when people buy mail away G1 Transformers like Reflector or the Omnibots or something like that. And this is Omnibot content that will remain in the episode.
Lies.
Yeah. Shocker.
I feel like we're in some sort of frozen timeline here now.
Right.
That whatever we say is completely like it's never going to be heard.
Never going to hit.
So I could just say anything right now, and it would just not matter. It wouldn't have any kind of causality at all.
When I nipped off for a second, did a different M.A.S.K come in? Is this? Did someone swap him?
Could
Well,
just
tell you
say
what,
anything right
say
now.
whatever you want, and let's just see if it makes it in. Go ahead. All right, I'm sure that'll make it in.
And your little dog too.
Anyway, the those G1 mail away boxes still have the address of the person who ordered it with robot points, and that can be really cool when you see like a really old vintage mail away box and it's still got the address on it. I think the funniest one I ever saw was a Japanese Diaclone one where one of the inner flaps, it's like a license and you have to attach a little picture of yourself and write your name, and then you take that off and you send it off, and that's how you enter the prize draw for the gold chrome Jazz or gold chrome Browning.
Oh, that's cool.
And I found a Diaclone blue hoist where the kid's picture was still attached and it's like had all his information on it. That's so bizarre. I remember it was offered to me and I said to my friend, actually, you know what? I'm going to pass on that one. I don't think I want to buy it.
That's hilarious. It was hilarious.
Really funny.
Yeah, I always love it when you get G1 packaging with the robot points cut out. That always makes me laugh a little bit because that's when you realise, that's when you remember a kid had this. You know, so at some point this was a child's toy.
Oh,
and
mate.
the tech specs as well. Always the tech specs are gone.
Oh,
I have my childhood Cyclonus tech spec, and on the other side of it, I wrote the phone number, or I think it was the address of a job interview I had to go to. It was just like the nearest thing. I'm so ashamed to admit.
When you were a child,
I defaced my own G1 Cyclonus tech spec from my childhood.
Yeah, I wondered about the timeline of that, I have to say.
No, I mean, these things were at hand like when I was older, and I just thought, I've got to write it on something. Like, what was I thinking?
Yeah,
I just love this idea that Maz was going to work when he was like 8. He was already applying for jobs.
I love the idea that when he was applying for jobs, the nearest thing he had to write on was a vintage Transformers box.
Just the tech spec. No, just the tech spec. I already mutilated the box. Yeah.
No pen or paper or anything. Just literally just grabbing the first thing, just fumbling around, and there it is. Just this Cyclonus tech spec, just a hand.
Just carried it around in his back pocket all of the time.
I literally can't believe it. Like telling this story, I can't believe it. But it is the truth. I think I'm going to have to photograph it next time I'm back in London and just show you. It's just mad.
It raises so many questions. That story. It's hilarious.
Did you know it was a tech spec when you did it?
Yeah, I knew what I was doing. I just didn't care. I think it was just a little bit before I'd gotten back into Transformers as like an 18-year-old. It's just why the Cyclonus tech spec was hanging around there. I have no idea.
I was going to say, it's really weird that you say I didn't care, but you still had it then. It's this tech spec.
I still have a jar of all of my childhood robot points. All the robot points I cut out of Transformers. I still have a jar of it.
I don't think you can redeem them anymore.
No, but I'm waiting for the day where I can.
A jar of robot points. There you go.
Yeah. I had to finish that sentence really quickly before one of you two decided you were going to insert something.
Oh, there we go. What are we inserting?
We'll work it in post later. Don't worry. But yeah, there's tons of that sort of stuff with G1 packaging. Certainly, isn't there? I'm amazed that we've got this far without talking about decoder specs and things like that, or any kind of in passing reference. So that was, I suppose it was fun. It was a real thing at the time, wasn't it? But
and the first time you did it again as an adult, owning a G1 package, it was like, oh wow, look at this. Stopped caring immediately 5 minutes later.
Yeah. It's fun for a point, but until you learn to read them by just going a little bit cross-eyed and kind of working it out without the little red strip, and then
it was amazing though how important like the tech specs and stuff were as a kid. Like the little bios and stuff. Because it sold the toy to you because you didn't have the internet to know about the character. So unless 100%. You were getting the comics or the cartoon, you didn't know these things. And this was how you learned who this character was. And it told you a little story on its own, didn't it?
Yep. Yeah, made a massive difference. It was the big selling point, really, I think, of that line. And I think we said it in a previous episode. I forget which one, but we were talking about, the kind of origins of Transformers and why it kind of meant more than to people than Diaclone, not to disparage Diaclone, but why it kind of resonated with people more, and it was all because of those bios. I think that old Bob wrote, and the kind of characters and just the way that they put it across as these characters having personality and kind of filling in the blanks between the fiction, for characters that were a bit kind of nondescript in the cartoon or whatever. Made a massive difference.
Do you remember what he said? He'd basically done all of that on Thanksgiving weekend in 1983.
Real rough job.
Just taken all those toys home, lined them all up on his mantelpiece or whatever it was, and just written those tech specs. I remember asking him, I thought, which was the most ridiculous question I thought I could have asked, was, so did you get to handle those toys and take them home? He'd go, yeah, I took all those toys home.
Yeah.
And I just, there should have been a follow-up question like, can I have them?
Yeah.
Do you still have them?
Yeah, they're probably in his loft or whatever. I don't know, but
that's amazing. He just wrote them all in like Thanksgiving weekend. Like Jim Shooter gave him that job, so go do this. And
I know. And now these are characters. Some of them, anyway, are characters that are like the sort of tentpole of multi-million-dollar franchise. And kind of having movies made about them and everything. And he just literally did it for one job over a weekend, and that was that. Mm-hmm. But didn't he also recently say that he came up with was it the Visionaries theme or something, or the words for it or whatever, and he came up with that whilst he was watching TV one evening. I can't remember the exact. There was something he said online about that recently. But yeah,
it's crazy when you think about how much stock people put in it as well. Like now they're looking for all this deep lore, and they're like, these characters, they have to behave like this or act like this. And like, some geezer came up with it on a weekend, mate. You know
exactly. I mean? If there was one thing from Bob Budiansky that I would say really comes across, is that it was a job, and that you get that sense from him. And people asking him questions. So I never forget someone asking him a question at TFN that year, and him trying to understand what was being asked about this specific character and whatever, and just kind of going, I don't know, man, this was a job for me. And it was like,
that's so common with ex-Hasbro people. It's so common. Like, we've tracked down people who used to work in Hasbro, and we asked them about packaging and things that had gone on toys. And you do very much get the impression, like, can you remember the minute details of a job you had 20 years ago, of what was written on the box of something you were supposed to be selling? Like, the small print? Like, no. It was just a job to the majority of the people who worked there.
They got hired to do a job, they did it, and that's what we then got in hand and hold with this kind of reverence and whatever. But to them, it was just a payday, wasn't it? So and just good that we had people like Bob that were extraordinarily good at it, I think.
Bullet fusion mode! Triple power! Will Racer!
What do you think it's going to be like going forward then? Like, with most toys now, a lot of them are being bought on the internet, aren't they, and stuff? So is packaging even going to be very important going forward? Because it doesn't have to sell the toy anymore. And stuff like the bios, like even now they're already relegated to, it's like Blur goes really fast and then 14 other languages telling you the same thing. It's all of these things are slowly disappearing, aren't they?
I think what's interesting to me is that you're seeing it. There you go. It's interesting. You're seeing it in.
But more on that later.
Yeah, you're seeing kind of two sides of it, really. In that, I would say, on the one hand, yes, packaging is almost becoming less important, and of course, it's probably worth talking a bit about in a minute as well, about the fact that Hasbro have stated that they want to get rid of plastic. They're looking to reduce the amount of packaging that they put on their products, things like that. Make it more recyclable, environmentally friendly, which is great. But there's also seemingly this notion or this trend towards less, I don't want to say less effort going into the packaging, but less elaborate packaging. So as you said, Liam, like the bios are typically smaller, a bit more relegated. Tech specs and decoders aren't as much of a thing as they once were. The kind of big, glorious paintings and things, the back of the box battles that we used to get isn't such a thing now. There is a kind of more generic feeling to some of the packaging, all of that. So it's all kind of been streamlined to be a bit more efficient and whatever. But at the same time, there are other aspects to it which make it more exciting. So like with Studio Series, the little inserts and things that they put in there to kind of recreate different scenes from the movie, for example. So like Hot Rod, I thought it was great that they have that bit with the Matrix in it, and the Quintesson one as well. It all looks really superb.
Yeah, the Scourge one with the reformat grid in the background, it was superb. That was fun.
Right.
Contemplated keeping that for a week and then didn't.
But the fact that it's in there to begin with
I like
it's interesting to me, because they didn't have to do that. Nobody bought that, I don't think. I'm sure, well, maybe somebody, but very few people will have been swayed specifically because of the packaging. So, but it's still kind of a fun thing to include for the people that really appreciate that. And I think
and the use of the movie Transformers logo was great.
Yeah. That actually, for me, more than the inserts and all of that, that was the one thing that I got a real kick out of seeing when I got Hot Rod, because I was like, that logo is so particular to that film. And for someone that had the poster of the film and everything on their bedroom wall, it's kind of emblazoned in my brain a bit. So I just think it's interesting that they're clearly going in this route of kind of less packaging is better and how do they streamline it, but then they are also including things that are kind of a bit elaborate as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So what do we think that Studio Series Hot Rod variant is going to be?
Target Master. It's going to be the black one, isn't it? We all know.
I'm going to go with pink.
Let it be pink.
Magenta, fuchsia, pink, whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll share your optimism.
And I hope everyone's been enjoying all the pink hot rod imagery we've been putting out on social media.
Need a pink hot rod one day. If it's got to be Studio Series, then so be it. But of course, it would be lovely if it was G1. But
I've got to shout out to Chris QQ for his amazing work on digibashing those hot rods into pink, because how good do they look?
Very good.
I've enjoyed the people who thought they were real as well. That was...
Yeah. People who own them. One of the guys who actually owns a prototype pink hot rod said to me, so where did you get that then? I was like, it's a digibash. That's how good his work was.
Chris has got, as that's happened to him before though. He's done a few digibashes that have then been doing the rounds, and people forget that they're digibashes or don't realise, and they get shared, and then people are like, "Oh my god, look at this new toy that's coming out!" And it's like, no, it's Chris. He's done his magic again.
Don't you think that's related to packaging? Because I remember being on TFW, and because Masterpiece has such uniform packaging, people were digibashing masterpieces that weren't even coming out yet. They were like weird repaints, and then there's always a specialist who does really good digibashes of them. And of course, he started doing those digibashes to Masterpiece stock photos, which are on that really classic grey marble-like background. So yeah, I mean, that's a thing. That's to do with packaging and presentation and official photographs and presentation of toys.
I've seen Masterpiece boxes digibashed before for new characters, new toys that haven't happened yet. I have seen people actually kind of dreaming up what the packaging would look like, which is kind of interesting in itself. But yeah, no, it definitely is kind of related, it's fair to say. Quite interesting.
I'm pretty interested to see what happens to sort of like the reissue packaging. If they do start reducing, when they do start reducing plastic down, because they're still quite elaborate packages, aren't they? And it's like, how are we seeing the end of those? Because they only just started bringing them back, haven't they? It's going to be quite sad thinking.
Walmart and all of that. That's a good point, actually. That's a good point.
Like we said earlier, the Walmart Beast Wars reissues use the same kind of molded bubble blister, don't they?
They
as
do.
The vintage.
I'm actually quite excited to see that come back. So,
might have to get a primal. Because that's a great toy. I've owned one before. I really like it.
Oh man, yeah, I'm going to get one for my boy. I've said online I will, because I had one primal in hand, and I put it up on eBay and it sold. My old copy, and then he clocked it when I was getting it ready to go in the box, and instantly fell in love with it. And me saying to him, I'm afraid this is going to someone else.
Well, you're going to have to fix that now, aren't you?
Yeah, well, exactly. He's, definitely, he deserves that for sure. But it is exciting to see them redoing that packaging, that Beast Wars packaging in the vintage style. But you're right, Liam, it doesn't really tally with the kind of mission that they've sort of said to reduce some of those plastics and things in that packaging either, does it? So yeah, it's
no, that's it. It seems like they're going the other way, despite what they're saying as such. But again, I feel like I'm going to be really sad once you don't see them anymore. But I'm interested to see how they do it without the windows, because having a little clear plastic window is such a classic part of Transformers, isn't it? Like,
isn't the idea to reduce waste?
Yeah.
Well,
it is,
a lot of.
They've said specifically that they'll, I think,
eliminate.
They're going to eliminate plastic in the packaging. Correct. So the debate was, how are they going to do the window?
Yeah,
right. A lot of the toys that my daughter buys, like she's really into OMG dolls and LOL dolls, and those boxes double up as play sets. You unfold the box, and it's a massive stage where the doll itself will then perform, and it's got like a mic and a band and musical instruments, and you need the entire box that folds out and becomes the stage. So it's not just like the display stand for a Vinyl Tech or the background, from one scene of Transformers the movie. It's a full-on playset with opening compartments and stuff, and she wants to keep all of them because they give it play value. Like they have these furniture sets that fold out and become like this entire room where the doll then sits and interacts with everything. So the actual box is the playset, just closed up, and you open it, get the toy out, and then it's an entire playset. So that's in a way reducing waste because it's kept with the toy, but eventually, of course, it will find its way into the waste or recycling or resold or whatever it is. So that's another option.
It's interesting with the Kingdom boxes as well. I don't know if you've noticed those, but they've shrunk the window on the front quite a bit, and it's a lot more cardboard. And I'm pretty sure, being as I've got most of them, I could have sworn that I don't think there are the plastic trays inside holding the figures. I think they're strapped to the cardboard.
I think you're right, actually. Just thinking to Air Razor or the couple of Kingdom ones that I do have, I think you are right, yeah.
Whereas Siege and Earthrise, I'm pretty sure they were still in the plastic trays, weren't they?
No, they were, yeah.
We were going to talk about plastic trays, weren't we? The idea of like sometimes these accessories being jammed into this plastic tray.
When they're bent.
And then you try and get this accessory out, and all you end up doing is bending the accessory or stressing it because it's so badly jammed in. You know, even going as far back as Takara Collector's Edition reissues, they have some really nasty plastic inserts.
I hate it sometimes trying to free toys from packaging like that when it's stressful and you're just trying to get it out. But there's this actual feeling of like, I'm going to break this, just trying to get it free of the clamshell or free of the plastic tray or whatever. Yeah, I hate it.
It's one of the horrible things they've started doing, isn't it? Is they cut holes in the plastic tray. Yeah. And so parts of the toys sort of poke through. Yeah. And then when you're trying to pull it out of the tray, it's stuck and you can see things bending and it's terrifying.
Yeah. It's not good. It's not good. Yeah, I wonder what they will do with the window and all of that. I'm kind of fascinated to see it, actually. I mean, I think it's a great move. Of course, people... it did create a bit of debate, and some people were not pro the idea because I saw a couple of people online when it was announced really rallying against it, because they wanted the toys to kind of keep looking the same, the packaging to still keep looking the same, and sod the planet and whatever. And I don't know, it's kind of a mad one because we do live on the planet, obviously. So, but I don't know. For me, I'm fascinated to see how they do it. I think it will be probably a very good move. Well, no doubt it will be. I kind of can't imagine how it's going to be. Maybe it'll be more windowless boxes as well. I don't know.
And it's going to eliminate that idea of displaying a toy in box, isn't it, as well? That's all going to completely go if they got rid of the windows.
I reckon I've figured out what they're going to do. And this is based on a package I received from Japan recently, which was the least effort I've ever seen employed by a seller, and yet it was genius. So I bought this small train bot, G1 train bot. It's probably about the size of a Stunticon or something. And I got the shipping box, and I was like, it's very light, and I can't hear anything moving inside, like literally nothing moving inside. I opened it, and all he had done is he'd taken the train bot. There was a tiny bit of bubble wrap, and he had just taped it to one side of the box. So I just opened this shipping box. There's this tiny little toy taped to the one wall of this box. No insert packaging material, no newspaper, no peanuts, nothing. And it's like, that's genius and insulting at the same time, but genius.
It is mad, though, how we were going to talk about it as well, but how some people, secondhand packaging, how they box stuff up.
Don't. No, I'm kind of so triggered by this. So
ease you in gently. I was trying to ease you in gently into this topic because I know you've had some bad experiences.
Still get people taking G1 vintage boxes, folding the flap over, shoving it into a jiffy bag, a padded envelope, and sending it into the post, into the hands of parcel farce, and Hermes. It's like, it's never going to arrive at the other end in the same state.
You've had some super shockers, though, can I say? You've had, that wasn't an allusion to your Shockwave debacle, by the way. But
mate,
it really wasn't.
Could have used some packaging. That could. I don't know what packaging would have saved it from being driven over by a forklift, but
I mean, that in itself, how does this keep happening to you? Where your vintage Shockwave got driven over by a forklift truck, but then also, you've got people sending you stuff and just literally shoving it in boxes with no protective packaging whatsoever. Well, wasn't one of yours recently just wrapped in brown paper? It wasn't even in cardboard.
It was a Vinyltech that had one layer of bubble wrap and then it had brown paper on the outside. And of course, Vinyltech packaging is 50% plastic window. So of course, I was just holding it in my hand saying, this is the size of a Vinyltech box. So there's probably not a lot of surrounded packaging. And of course, it was kind of squishy. And I thought, the plastic window is going to be ruined on this. And of course, it was completely split and ruined. And when you buy from a collector, it's disappointing. But a lot of the weird things I buy, I don't buy from collectors. And sometimes I just need to remember that it doesn't matter how high you run the risk of insulting somebody. You've got to say, please package this to arrive in exactly the same state as you've got it in your hands there. Because sometimes they just think, and I buy rare stuff sometimes for super cheap. Like, well, this thing only cost that dude £7.50. I'll just stick it in a plastic envelope and send it the way it is.
I don't think it's insulting to ask at all. I sell stuff on eBay or wherever, and I still get people messaging me saying, please, can you make sure it's well wrapped or whatever.
That's a good point, actually.
I
never insults me.
Never take
you're
offense.
absolutely right. Yeah, good point.
I always reply and I say, yes, of course, I'll use, multiple layers of bubble wrap. I'll put brown paper in there as well. I'll make sure it's well wrapped, because it's important to know. And people are paying, in some cases anyway, quite a lot of money. It's important to make sure that it arrives in good condition.
Completely agree.
But you're also right to acknowledge that actually sometimes people just don't appreciate what a difference it's going to make. And it shows you that actually how a non-collector might think of toy packaging as sort of disposable or not worth anything, not knowing that actually that folding that flap on top of a vintage G1 box is enough to give people the cold sweats.
Yeah, it can just destroy the whole point of the purchase. It'll just completely remove the entire point of the purchase. And even if you get your money back, you just think, well, that's a specimen that's been ruined, and no one's won from that. No one's benefited. I remember someone actually sending a G1 box just with an address written on it. Just stuck to it.
That's what Amazon do though now, isn't it? They stick a shipping label on the front of the box and just ship the box out. That's what they've been doing.
Facepalm. Or maybe people don't care about modern boxes. Maybe modern packaging.
Oh no, people have been complaining about that on Twitter.
People
rightly so.
Yeah,
that's where I saw it.
Yeah, so. Which I think rightly so. It's never happened to me. I've never ordered that from Amazon, anything from Amazon, Transformers or whatever. But I have seen pictures of it, and it is kind of like, it's a bit rough.
Yeah. So, speaking of sacrilege and boxes, I have a lot of G1 boxes in my collection now, in really good condition. And one of the things that matters with G1 boxes is sometimes if one of the side flaps is still sealed with the original retail seal. And I have to say, I've been opening all of them and flattening these boxes for storage because most of them don't have the insert bubble, and the amount of real estate that these boxes take up, it was just time, and I just flattened every single box I could, opened the seal on both sides, think, look, I'm the owner, I want to keep it for me, so I'm just going to do what works for my collection and my life. Same reason I got rid of all the Masterpiece packaging and all the third-party packaging, and even recently the Studio Series 86 packaging. I thought I'd keep it, but in the end, no, it's better out of my life.
I think you've got to make decisions that are right for you as a collector. I don't think cutting a second piece of tape on a box that already has the tape cut on the other side, I don't think that's the worst.
It didn't matter to me in the end.
I think maybe there's someone out there that would be like, the idea of that. I don't imagine there would be many people. Incidentally, I want to lobby a challenge for anybody that is still listening to this conversation about boxes at this point. But, I'd suggest going back to the start and having a drinking game with the amount of times M.A.S. says the word flaps through this entire episode, because I swear I'm sort of chuckling in my head now whenever you use the word flaps. I'm just kind of, I don't know, tickling me slightly.
I'm waiting for him to start saying that flaps.
Yeah, indeed. He's saying
I'm not
nothing.
Saying a word. I'm not saying a word.
Anyway, going back to your point, no, I'm totally with you about flattening stuff and all of that. I think it's
interesting.
Well, yes, it's interesting. You've got to make decisions, though, don't you, that are right for you as a collector? Because there are bits, as I said earlier, that I've recycled, bits I've kept. I think what I struggle with a little bit is that sometimes, actually, when I sit down and think about what I've chosen to keep and not keep, it's not always that logical. So, for example, I will pretty much always recycle third-party packaging, but actually, and that's for space, because imagine keeping all those Fans Toys boxes, and actually that's one thing I will say is that they, I think, should stop using styro, because that's not environmentally friendly at all. So it's fun, but it's done now. Do you know what I mean? We've all had fun with the styro, but probably time to cut that now. I think
they didn't start with styro, did they? I don't think Quakewave and Scoria didn't have styro.
No, they didn't. It was Saw was the first one.
Yes.
Interestingly, but I mean, look,
how amazing was it to get Saw the first time though? And have that double layer styro.
It was incredible. Don't get me wrong, it was incredible, and I loved it. And it's not me wishing to be preachy, but I just think now when I see them now, and it's like FT 106 or whatever we're on. I think, you know, the it's been done, and there's a lot of styro out there now. So, but that's just my, you know, that's my little preachy moment done. But what was I saying? Yeah, so I do recycle a lot of third-party packaging that can be recycled. But then actually, bizarrely, that's some of the stuff that, if anything, I'm more likely to sell on later down the line. And then I don't have the boxes. So, but it's equally, it's not worth it to me. So I've sold a couple of third-party bits recently, and it's never really harmed the sale. There are a couple of people that maybe are like, oh, do you have the box? Bizarrely, mostly on fans toy stuff, actually, probably more than any. But it's never majorly harmed the sale to the point where I think actually it's worth me keeping that box for however many years and taking up space in my house in order to, you know, get a slightly higher resale value. But just and I that's how I've come to sort of think of it, is that actually if I do lose a little bit of coin later on, well, that's the price that I have to pay to get the space back, you know, and to kind of recycle it.
That's exactly what logic went through my head when I got rid of MP packaging. So, yes, it's going to affect sale prices, lose customers who potentially would have bought these things, but the cost of living the quality of life versus the cost of a few better sales, it was a no-brainer.
Yeah, definitely. See, bizarrely, I do keep all Masterpiece packaging apart from MPM, Movie Masterpiece, because I really like it. And so, yeah, that I would keep. But G1, you know, I've sold on, and because I just couldn't. Most of it anyway, collector's edition stuff I keep and all of that. But just because I love it, absolutely love G1 packaging, but it was just so inconsistent and no way to store it. I do keep all of my Japanese G1 and anything that is quote unquote valuable or rare or, you know, anything like that, which is mostly Japanese. But so I do keep that. But I mean, I would have loved, and I think, you know, I did flirt with the idea of keeping a set of, I think it was Headmasters and Target Master packaging at one stage, and Power Masters.
So glad you didn't.
Yeah, I think you had them, didn't you? But even then, you know, it was just the fact that they're all different sizes just was mad to me. So there's no real way to kind of stack them or display them.
That's exactly why I flattened them, mate. That's precisely it.
So we've done a lot of talking about packaging, but let's have a couple of questions here. So, Maz, what's your favourite type of packaging?
Juiced Diaclone. 100%. Styro inserts, alt mode packaging, like vintage G1. Incredible exclusive artwork on one whole side of the box that's just beautiful and is the main thing I collect. So that is absolutely top of my list, is Juiced Diaclone packaging. I love G1 packaging, obviously. Probably Target Masters, Headmaster era is probably my favorite. I think now looking back, it's the ones I'm most likely to display. And I think I really like Car Robots packaging as well. That, you know, it's lovely, kind of eventually has finally sucked me back in to this line that I never collected, but finally the floodgates have opened, and I want those Takara Car Robots boxes more than anything. JRX,
it's incredible
man.
how
JRX, that box.
But I mean, it is incredible, like even that, like an older toy line, not like super vintage like G1, but Car Robots can suck you in even now. Like...
Yeah, it's the best toy line that some people don't collect. I'm sure it's going to be the thing where when I've got them, I'll just think, why didn't I do this sooner? I always knew it was going to be great, and the packaging is actually a huge part of that.
Yeah, I'm the same with the Hasbro version of the RID packaging. It's just so beautiful.
It is nice, yeah.
That is a weirdly sort of underappreciated toy line, isn't it? The Transformers. It's not forgotten, but it almost feels like the forgotten one because everyone sort of skips over it. They just skip straight to the Unicron trilogy and then onwards, and it sort of feels like Transformers started with G1, took a break, and then started again around the time of the movies.
That RID CR episode is going to be epic.
Just wait till you end up with Skybite because he's like the best character. Sixo, what's your favourite packaging?
Just similar to Maz, really. It's G1, Target Masters, and Headmasters, and to a certain extent Power Masters as well. Because
electricity, baby.
It's just incredible. Yeah, the electricity is cool, that effect. But just for me, it's everything that's great about that kind of era of G1 packaging. You know, it's got the sunburst and all of that. It's got the flap, the pictures of the toy transforming on the top, which I love. It's got the back of the art box.
Sorry, did you say flap?
I did say flap. That was me saying flap. You said flap too, then. But the thing that I really love about the Target Master and Headmaster packaging is the little window for the Nebulon.
Oh,
which is just amazing. Absolutely love it. So seeing the toy in vehicle mode, and then having the little guy in his own little window. It's just. I remember as a kid being in awe of that packaging, and the feeling hasn't gone away to today.
Also, G1 gift sets are pretty nice, aren't they?
That's really nice. I've never owned one though. The packaging, never owned one. I had a vague notion of doing that at one stage, Superion or whatever. And then, as we said earlier, the dream went towards Gold Box instead.
Do you not have a Leo Kaiser gift set then?
I do have. I was talking. No. I was talking Scramble City and all of that malarkey. But I do have a Leo Kaiser gift set. Yes, I do. Thank you. It's very nice.
I'm so flappy for you.
Oh my God.
It's late.
Just cut the podcast now. That's it. Just end on that.
Liam, your favourite?
I'm going to go with a bit of a left field one. I'm not even going to pick Transformers because I was actually thinking about this. And, well, you know what it is normally I would have picked G1, but I was thinking about it, and it's because I've seen it so much. It's as beautiful as I still find it, and as nostalgic as it is. I was opening some boxes the other day, and I took out a Brave Star toy, and seeing that packaging just it almost knocked me over. It's so beautiful. So at the moment, that's very keenly on my mind because I remember seeing that in the shops as a kid, and it was one of the first times I really felt like I was looking at premium packaging because it had that gold sort of embossed thing going on, that white and red. And it just felt completely different to anything else.
Did you have to run off to your bedroom and scream into a pillow?
Because if you didn't, mate, then it wasn't that good.
I was going to say, that's the level of excitement that boxes can get you.
Yeah. I prefer to keep that private myself, thank you.
Okay, that's not a podcast share.
In the beginning came the beasts, but nature lies. They're robots in disguise.
So those are some great answers. But what is an example of packaging you'd never part with?
I guess for me, the obvious one is I guess Masterpiece, because that's the one that I've hung on to fairly consistently. But actually above that, I would say some of the Japanese G1. So again, like the Leo Kaiser, Star Saber, Road Caesar, all of these phenomenal toys that I just can't ever imagine Great Shot, things like that. And I love that packaging. Absolutely love that packaging. The artwork on it is stupendous. The style of it, even some of the kind of more reissue-y toys. So like the reissue Jinrai, Fireguts Jinrai, things like the Fireguts Jinrai box is one of my favorite boxes of all time. It's just phenomenally gorgeous. It's just the artwork on it. They've redone it in orange. It's just beautiful. The pictures of the toy on it are beautiful. The whole thing, the whole style of it, love it. So yeah, that's my answer, is that Japanese G1, but some of those, that whole style of thing. That's immense.
Fantastic answers.
Choice. Yeah.
Brilliant answers.
What about you, Liam?
Oh, me? For me, it would be the G1 Swoop box. I'm not that bothered about keeping boxes. I prefer to get rid of them because I feel this need to keep them. You know what I mean? So I kind of like to force myself to get rid of them. But the G1 Swoop box, it was such a moment getting that toy that I couldn't never part with it. If I got rid of everything, that would be the toy I would keep as well. So
it's a great toy. I know you love that one. Isn't that one of the boxes where is it that you can see on the box the photography that there's something propping the toy up, or have we just seen the behind the scenes photos so many times?
I think so. Yeah,
yeah. We saw them recently.
Yeah. That swoop box is so wonderful. It's got like the gold parts from the Diaclone, but with the red chest and everything and the pointy nose. Do you know the toy that was used for that photography just recently sold? It was made available for sale from an ex-employee.
Wow.
And I asked about it, but I didn't get the swoop, but I did get other toys from that lot. And that's another amazing thing about G1 packaging. It's covered in prototypes.
Yeah, which is fascinating by itself.
Yeah.
And there are some, aren't there? The is it Octane? I think there's one of them, isn't it?
Octane's got the Kodak box underneath it. Yeah, on the top of the box.
That's the classic.
Yeah,
wonderful. Yeah.
And that when we were talking about photography, we were saying how makeshift it can be, and it's just wonderful to think that back in the 80s, that's how it was as well. With these guys that were taking pictures of it all, it's just fantastic. Love it.
Yeah, so that swoop box is really super special because it has that like half prototype on it, which is basically a Diaclone painted red, and someone owns that now. That actual toy. I've got the grapple from the grapple box in my collection.
Really?
It's got all those stickers on the side that were only used on the grapple that was photographed for the Transformers boxes, because it didn't exist in Diaclone, those stickers, and it doesn't exist in Transformers. They were just on the mock-up that was used on the box. And, you know, someone like Raz owns G1 prototypes, hard copies of other toys that are on packaging, and that's something really special about G1 packaging, just those little bits of history that are scattered around them. Swoop is
it's almost like a work in progress, isn't it?
Yes, precisely.
Yeah, Perceptor is another one, isn't it? The toy looks different on the box.
Yeah, it's got a red head. Raz owns that. And I've seen that in person.
Slag
Grey
well
Astro Train.
Grey Astro Train. Grey Astro Train. Yeah.
Snarl has got a red head as well. On
Yes, he does, doesn't he? He does. Yep. Absolutely, yeah.
Of course, blue streak.
Blue streak. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, fascinating, really. So, yeah. What about you, Ness?
Great Shot was an excellent shout. And Victory packaging in general is glorious. But yeah, G1 Great shout. That's one I'd never part with. Juicer Dieclone Mirage is one I would never part with. It's the first Juicer Dieclone I bought because of the art, and I'll keep it forever. And I'd like to say JRX because it's so gorgeous. I've owned it before, but it was a really long time ago that I owned the gift set and sold that, so I hope I won't ever repeat that mistake. And I did have one more. There was one. Oh, yes. Target Master Hasbro Scourge. The one that you gave me is just one of the most special boxes. And it's really funny because it's actually the bottom of the box that, you know, when you have a really large image of the alt mode and the robot next to each other, and then it's got the name and function bar and a bit of writing that says transforms from bar of soap to robot and back again.
Yeah.
That's really nostalgic for me. And I have a photograph of me at age 7 with the box for Target Master Scourge just behind me on my bed. And it's just from that angle. And having that box is amazing. That's one I would never sell.
I remember getting that box with the toy, obviously, and being super happy to have it, and then saying to you, you can have the box. And I remember how you were quite excited about it, as I recall.
Still, it's the only box I have in my display. Everything else is packaged away and flattened. Not that one. That one stays.
It is amazing, like how beautiful, like so many boxes are, but the ones you choose to keep are generally the ones that mean something to you, aren't they? Mm-hmm. They are. There's like an attachment to them. Makes them that extra bit special.
Yeah, sometimes it's something like a price tag. Like if I ever find a G1 Starscream box with a Toys R Us UK price tag, I'll go crazy for it. Like I couldn't even imagine missing out on that. I have a UK, I think it's a Grandstands Converter Alphatron with a Harrods price sticker on. And, you know, my wife worked at Harrods for years, and it's like, it was a really cool thing to have. I was like, yeah, these were sold in Harrods. I remember I saw a UK Weird Wolf box, and it had a Hamleys price tag, and it was like $17.99 for a Weird Wolf in 1987. Typical Hamleys. It was like amazing to see that. So sometimes it's little things like that, and I'd really love to find an Argos smokescreen as well with the Argos code sticker on the side. There are little things like that, and one I'll never find is a hubcap with a Fennec sticker on it. I mean, what are the odds of someone buying a hubcap from Fennec and still having the price tag on it? That would be amazing.
I love how specific your answers are like that as well. It's fantastic. It's just that personal sort of touch, isn't it?
Yeah, that's how much these toys mean to us, though, isn't it? That's how much
we wouldn't be here if we didn't, would we?
Right. The connection to a moment in the past and a specific set of parameters that evoke the strongest emotional response from your history, because they made you so happy when you were younger that we're still here today feeding off that.
Yeah.
Packaging is an enormous part of that.
So one final question then. And we spoke about this on social media, haven't we, as before, in multiple places, but robot or vehicle mode in packaging? Or I suppose for Sixo, beast mode.
Alt mode. Just alt mode. Yeah. For me, very definitely alt mode. All the time. No question. I would always rather the toys came packaged in their alternate form, whatever that might be, you know. And it's for lots of reasons. I think it's great to see I like the combination of toy in alt mode and character artwork in robot mode. I think that's glorious, because then you get to see this beautiful drawing of all the potential that kind of gets your imagination going of what that toy could do, and kind of what it represents, which I think is great. And the packaging artwork kind of becomes iconic in its own right. Also, I think it's really nice to see the alt mode and what it looks like, and to kind of make a thing of that, because I think all too often the alt mode can be seen as secondary or kind of as like a byproduct of the main thing. And that's probably a whole topic in itself. But I really like getting stuff out in alt mode from the package and then having the experience of transforming it into robot mode and kind of revealing the robot as you go for the first time. That for me is the ultimate experience. All of that, every part of it, including the packaging. And I think sometimes, if I was to take something like some of the more recent Studio Series stuff, like something like Grimlock, which comes packaged in robot mode, and it looks dead exciting in the packaging. Don't get me wrong, it looks great. But then the process of just truncating it into a dinosaur is somehow not as exciting as going the other way. Do you know what I mean? And I don't know. It just means more to me if they come packaged in vehicle or alt mode, for sure.
It's nice to solve that mystery, isn't it? As well, because
right.
If you remember G1 boxes, you had on the front, you had the robot, but it was art, wasn't it? And the actual picture of the toy were only on the sides and the top, weren't they? So they're actually still quite small, because the back was the mural. Whereas now with modern toys, they generally have a giant picture of the robot, so you can see what you're getting.
Yeah, I think I have some great memories of revealing the head for the first time of the robot mode, as you're transforming them for the first time. And you just flip a panel or something moves around and the head pops out. And it's like, wow, there he is. There's the head sculpt. And it's really, really very memorable and great part of that whole process.
Sat here nodding and just agree with everything you guys have been saying. Absolutely all of it.
You lose it a little bit when they come packaged in robot mode and you're just looking at it. I mean, they still look nice. I remember being impressed by the War for Cybertron double dealer, that's there now, and thinking, I saw a couple I was with my boy and we were in a toy shop and he was looking at a couple of bits, whatever. But I remember being impressed with how it looked in the box and thinking, wow, it looks really, really nice. But you can look at it in the store, and it's just, it's all done. It's there, you've seen it, and then you can kind of put it down and walk away. Whereas there's something about them being packaged in vehicle mode that kind of calls you to want to see more. I don't know.
Yeah. Do you think there's sort of an element as well, because of the alt mode is sort of the secondary mode, isn't it? To some extent, the robot mode is the primary, fictionally, isn't it? That's who they are. And the robot mode is a disguise or whatever. So there is some element of seeing that robot for the first time, what it actually looks like is just this.
I think so. You are revealing the character, for sure.
You feel like you're looking at the disguise, don't you, when they're in vehicle mode?
Yes.
What's in there?
But it's been funny how many people on social media said that actually they prefer it in robot mode, because then they put it in robot mode and the face has got a scuff on it and it annoys them because they weren't able to identify that QC problem before they bought it. And I thought, well, that's a really modern complaint.
It's a change in habits, though, isn't it?
Yeah. I'm thinking about third-party things based on IDW characters. I don't think there's ever been many toys where the alt mode has mattered less than third-party toys which are based on IDW characters in the comics, because the robot mode is entirely why people are buying them. If you bought MMC's Azalea, you probably put it in the vehicle mode maybe once, and then you're just I'm not doing that again.
Well, look at Flame Toys and how popular their non-transforming IDW toys are. Right.
So there's definitely a shift towards character-based collecting versus toy collecting, where the alt mode was actually the draw. And I know for me, a lot of my favorite toy lines, the alt mode is the draw. Bullet trains? Oh my God, yes. So having those bullet trains both in Hasbro and Takara packaging in that mode is just, that's how I want to buy a toy. That's what I want it to look like. And a Vinyl Tech is another one. Alternators, just those. Yeah, GT, fantastic alt modes. And then revealing the robot. It's two moments of wow. Yeah. It's first of all, the package with the packaging and the toy in vehicle mode, which is the main draw of that line. Amazing. Can we actually just talk about TFGT packaging? Because wow.
Yeah, that is lovely as well.
That's
my first
really
experience
something,
of that. So
just today, right? Or yesterday, I think you got
yesterday,
your
just opening the box and seeing it, the beautiful art, and then the car. But it's the car's top down as well, which is really unusual.
Oh, how fantastic! And just those boxes next to each other, the 1, 2, 3, 4 of those from every angle, you can line them up, and they're beautiful.
It's
like
some of the best
yeah.
packaging.
They've gone to so much degree of work for every part of the box, top, side, because one side is the robot, the other side is like the human character that comes with it, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then of course on the front it's just massively busy but beautiful, and the three of them are so different in color scheme that it's one of the best and most underappreciated lines, and the packaging is just killer for those.
I think seeing it top down as well, like my first thought, it reminded me of do you remember Spy Hunter and games like that, where the cars are top down, aren't they, in the view?
Right.
And so as soon as I saw it, it's almost like I saw it in motion, and I think that's what instantly attached me to it.
Fantastic.
Rather than it being like showroom pose, and that's like a lot of them are, aren't they? It was just so different, that energy straight away from it.
Talking about the whole transformation thing and the alt mode and all of that, I think it's worth acknowledging that, just thinking about other opinions, there are people that will prefer robot mode because they don't like transforming them.
Yeah.
That's true. Yep.
And
well, I was going to say for mine, like for vintage toys, or for toys where like the alt mode is like a licensed car or something like that, I definitely prefer the vehicle mode or alt mode. But for modern toys, I think I prefer robot mode because so many times, like you were saying about the IDW characters, the alt modes are like an afterthought when it comes to toys, and like so many of the generations toys now, like the alt modes, they're all right, but they're not the priority. It's really the robot mode, and then they've worked out how to do an alt mode around it, and it's kind of like, I think it'd be very disappointing to see some of like a Moon Racer and characters like that where the alt mode, it's just them sort of lying down, and I don't think that'd appeal to anybody really.
I think for me, the obvious one is something like Fans Toys, who I suppose I mention them again because they're in many ways the kind of the go-to third party for a lot of like very specific collectors in some ways. That sort of resonates, and they obviously package everything in robot mode, and that to me is a sign of a very niche, like playing to their audience, because there are going to be people that collect those toys and just want to whack them on a shelf, so they just want the representation of the character, as you were saying, Maz. They're not necessarily interested in all of the engineering and getting it between modes and all of that. They might transform it, or they might just literally take it out of the styro, have a little mess around with it, and in a display or on a shelf or in a detolf it goes, and that's where it lives forevermore. And I think that's quite interesting that they've opted to do that. Clearly, it's a sort of policy of theirs because literally every release is robot mode.
I think it's as well like the environment we're in is very collector focused and driven, isn't it? So it's a lot of the things we see are those toys that are designed for that market. For that includes a lot of people who will never transform the toys or buy them just to have on a shelf, and so you can understand why they go straight for that mode and why a lot of people don't transform the toys.
That's funny. Like with Fans Toys, I would have thought that their Dinobots would have been one to package in alt mode, but obviously the space they take up is mad. But I don't think anyone bought Fans Toys Dinobots for the robot mode. Surely they bought them for the Dino modes.
Maybe that's
a lot of the displays and collections that people have. Most of the time, I see them in robot mode.
No, I agree with that. Actually, I see a lot of people putting those Dinobots in robot mode as well. I'm sure there are people that I'm not saying no Fans Toys collectors transform them, because of course some people do. I mean, I do, but I just think there are a lot of maybe more casual collectors, that aren't amassing lots of vintage stuff, that aren't really into the hobby in the way that we might think of it, and for them, just having those characters represented on a shelf is good enough for them, and they maybe don't want the complexity of having to transform everything. So
I had them displayed in robot mode, but I preferred the Dino modes just because I didn't have the space to put them in Dino mode.
Yeah.
But I had them displayed as robot mode too.
There's always definitely a space concern with Dinobots, because with my G1 Dinobots and even the Power of the Prime ones, they're all in robot mode just because they take up less space on the shelf. Right. Even though the Dino modes are the best mode by miles.
Yeah. And now back to Transformers Generation 2.
And with that, our packaging chat comes to an end, just like Scotland's participation in Euro 2020. And depending on when you listen to this, probably England's too. But if something's good, it's never gone. So if you want to express yourself, the world's always in motion on our social media feeds. And they've been busier than an England goalkeeper in a penalty shootout lately, haven't they, Maz?
Yes, go to our Instagram, because actually, if you haven't noticed, _takeover on Instagram, because it's a photo-based platform, we do actually post quite a lot more photos from all our accounts that you probably won't see on the Twitter page and the Facebook page. So that's a really cool place to follow, and it's been growing quite nicely. And of course, we just did an episode on toy photography. So usually there's relevant stuff based on the episode that we're promoting. So if you catch this episode, then make sure you follow the Instagram, because you'll see a bunch of images from us related to what we've talked about in this packaging episode.
And that's it. Like, often we miss stuff, don't we? And people pick it up. So it's good to continue the conversation there. Thank
you also to all those who left 5-star Apple reviews for us that we didn't mention before because they were on a non-UK version of the app. So cheers to Chrono Prime, Mr. Pratfall, KM2561, Anthony Lantern, Vash the Stampede, Tater X, TG Ping, and Boops My Boops for the awesome reviews. You guys are great. Thanks so much.
So if people want to find you on social media, Maz, where do they go?
You can find me at TFsquareone on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook.
And Sixo, if people want to feel intense jealousy at your Binaltech collection, where can they find you?
Oh, all over the place, mate. It's I'm at SixoTF on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube.
And if you want to see photos of Micromaster combiners that these guys have made me buy, or a roller coaster of football-related emotion, you can find me at Toybox Soapbox on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Join us again next time, but for now, it's arrivederci. It's one-on-one.